got to tell y'all about this thing called life. You know I got to share it. See, there's this thing called life. I got to tell y'all.
And you know what? I failed to even mention for anybody watching that doesn't know what an NDE is. That's a near-death experience. And most people that share their stories about NDEs, it's like you basically die, or as I guess us humans understand it, right? Here, like we die and then you come back to life, right? So that's the NDE. So I guess we'll lead up to that now. So you agreed to go to Iraq. You traveled. So you were there doing the same thing you were doing here, right? As Oh no.
No, I didn't go as an archaeologist. I went as a construction representative.
Oh,
So
wow.
I worked for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who they were doing a lot of the rebuilding of Iraq. So they're building roads, medical facilities, police stations, water treatment plants,
Oh, wow.
sewage systems, all kinds of things.
Mm.
And so I was in charge of kind of managing some of those construction projects.
Oh, wow. And so how long were you there for before everything happened?
I went over there in August 2006. So I was over there about 16 months, I think. I was injured the end of November in 2007.
Oh, wow. So you were, at that point, you were pretty comfortable, but it wasn't that, right? You already had your protocols as to every time you went out. So basically you were going from site to site, or supervise or managing the construction of different.
A lot of the construction projects that I had, well, all of them were directly managed by one of 4 Iraqi engineers who worked for me. So they were out at the sites every single day. I would go out maybe once a week and go visit these sites and make sure everything was going all right, and make sure that the Iraqi contractors kind of knew that we were paying attention and wanted good quality work. And then about after, I don't know how many months, after a while, all of my projects were given to someone else, and I was given one road project. And I was in charge of that one road project exclusively, and I did go outside the wire every day for months on that project. And then I moved to another base near Nasiriyah called Talil, and I was then I guess a program manager or project manager. So I did a little bit different work. I was working on the funding of projects and overseeing them kind of at the next level up from a construction rep. And that's what I was doing. That was the job that I was doing when our vehicle was hit. I was out with 3 other colleagues, and we were visiting some water treatment plant sites and a road site. Yeah, it was the end of the day, and long hot day. So I was kind of half asleep in the truck when an IED, an improvised explosive device, went off under the vehicle.
Oh, wow. So it was right as you were driving over it, it went off?
Yeah, I think they concluded that it was probably set off by a cell phone.
Oh, wow. And how many vehicles were in the convoy as you guys?
We had 4 vehicles. When we would travel off base, we always had at least 3 vehicles. But this time, because there were 4 of us, 4 of my colleagues, they can only fit 2 of us in each vehicle. So there's a lead truck that has a driver and a gunman. And then what they call the principal vehicle, where I would be in. and then a gun truck. And this time we had 2 principal vehicles. So in our truck, there was a driver and a guard and two of us. And then there was another vehicle like that, a driver, a guard, and 2 more of my colleagues. And then the gun truck had, I think it had 2, but maybe it had, no, I think it must have had 3 guys in it.
Mm. Wow.
So we had a 4 vehicle convoy. It was typical way that we traveled off base. We couldn't go off base without an armed convoy.
And so as you were passing, or did anyone end up, I mean, aside from your experience, did anyone else pass away from the IED explosion, or?
Yeah, the guard sitting in front of me was killed.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. And the other 3 of us were, yeah, all pretty severely injured.
Oh. Did any of your other colleagues have, or anyone else that was in the vehicle? Because only your vehicle took the hit, right? The other,
Mhm.
wow. So did anyone else experience also NDE or anything?
No,
Wow.
no.
So during this experience, so you were hit, and did you instantly know, like, did you have an out of body experience and then you saw everything happening, or how did it go from that point?
Yeah, I was kind of half asleep with my head on my hand with my eyes closed. And then I didn't hear the explosion. I was just out of my body.
Wow.
And I found myself standing, like standing on a stage kind of, and there were thousands of beings all around me, like in a stadium. And I was downloading information to them. And then I communicated that I wasn't going to go back into my body. I wasn't interested. And
Oh,
they were like, okay, good, fine. And then said, well, but what if you went back and did this thing? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll go back. So that's how easily my mind has changed. And then I call my movements during this experience blinking, because I would be in one place and then in another place. There was no in between there. So after kind of interacting with these thousands of beings, I blinked to another place that I called the deep rest environment, where I did a kind of a life review and just went into this really, really deep rest. And when I was done with that, went back to that big group again for a few minutes, and then went to a place that I call the healing environment. I was kind of hovering at a 45-degree angle above the truck. I could see the truck down on the desert, and I could see each of us in the truck. And I could perceive that like like organizations of energy. And I was with a couple other beings, and we were playing around with my injuries. We were setting different injuries in my body. When we were done kind of playing around with that, and I chose the injuries that I wanted. We set them in the body, and then I blinked again, and I was down standing next to the truck. And it was kind of like, it was like I was in between time space, like nothing was moving. It didn't feel like time was moving. It felt like everything had stopped, and I was standing there with about 8 helpers or colleagues or guardians or whatever we want to call them. And we were all discussing what I had agreed to do, kind of from the viewpoint of, when I was talking to all those beings, communicating with all those thousands of beings, it was like discussing what I was going to do from the perspective of management. And then when I was standing next to the truck and talking to these 8 other beings, it was like, okay, now we're on the ground and things look different from here. So let's talk about these things now. And then when we were done, I just blinked, and I heard a big pop, and I was back in my body.
Oh, wow.
And I knew that I had been somewhere else, but I also knew that it was a pretty serious explosion and that I would have to open my eyes and kind of deal with that.
Mm.
So I really didn't think about where I had just been. It was a few months before I finally went, you know what? I went somewhere. Where did I go? And as soon as I closed my eyes, just the memory came back so vividly and so completely. I couldn't figure out how I had forgotten
Oh,
because it
wow.
was so complete and so detailed.
Mm.
And that's when I started writing the book about it.
Oh, wow. So as you were writing the book, it all started coming back to you?
It started coming back to me, and then I started writing the book.
Oh, okay. How long was it after it happened that everything started coming back?
Probably about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, when you were in this kind of stadium type room,
Mhm,
so the truck and everything weren't there, right? You were like in a whole nother place when that
mhm.
happened. And then after everything that had happened, then they took you back there, and that's when, or you just appeared back there. It's funny when
Yeah,
you say the
I think I was in control of myself. No one was moving me around.
okay.
No one was telling me where to go. I was always in charge of myself. That's what it felt like.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I could go wherever I wanted to go or not go wherever I wanted to go.
Oh,
If I
wow.
had, if they had said, well, why don't you go back and do this? And I had said no, they would have my it looks to me like they would have just said, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Like it was up to me. It wasn't anyone ordering me around.
Wow. And it's interesting that you talked about the stadium, because just my last guess, I don't think they said they had an NDE, but they had that experience and they mentioned the stadium seating.
I've had lots of other people come to me and say, I recognize that. I've been there. I don't know if it's the same group, but I know that place. I
Wow.
think that's neat.
See, but their experience, it was interesting because they said they were even in this meeting and it was all these other beings that looked like, not a human, right? That she was the only human there. And then one of them turned and said, not the human. And then boom, she appeared back in her body. She was sitting up in her bed. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And she doesn't know why. I was curious to know why. Did you experience anything like, did you see beings from other that didn't look human? Like they look different, or did everyone look?
Well, the way I describe that is in my memory, they look human.
Mm,
But I think that that's an overlay. I think that that makes sense to my human mind.
mm,
And I think I talk about this in more detail in the book. But there are parts of my experience that I can go back into this experience and be there. And when I'm there, if 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 there's things that I can change that are kind of malleable with my imagination, then it kind of tells me that I'm maybe not seeing exactly what was there,
mm.
that my human mind is making it comprehensible. So I can go back and change those beings into monsters or into little beams of light, or I can I can I can change them. They're kind of fluid, which suggests to me that I'm the one making them look human, because
Oh,
there's other parts of my experience I can't, no matter what, I can't change that image in my mind. It
mm,
is what it is, and I can't use my imagination to change it.
oh,
So
wow.
that suggests to me that some things I'm seeing as they were, and some things I'm seeing perhaps accurately, but not truly, or
Wow.
something.
And yourself, you saw yourself as human too, or you were? Oh, that's it. Were you seeing yourself, or were you looking through your eyes, like everything? You couldn't really see your own
I
body.
was aware when I was in front of all those thousands of beings, I was aware that I was in a human form
Mm,
and I had my uniform on
Oh, wow.
It's all ripped up from being blown up.
Wow.
I was very aware of that. I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. This makes me look pretty adventurous. But then when I went to, for instance, the deep rest environment, I really perceived myself as an organization of energy that didn't have a form necessarily.
Wow.
And I think, I mean, that felt kind of more true or more real.
And I had heard in an interview that when you mentioned about choosing your injuries, how you actually got to see what life would be like, for example, if you had a missing arm, and how you were all laughing about it or something.
Yeah, we thought it was hilarious. Me and the people, the two that I was with, the one especially felt like an old friend. And we were the ones kind of goofing around, and we'd kind of do the equivalent of waving a hand, and my right arm would be severed.
Wow.
And then we would see, like, just in a flash, like a holographic image or something, we'd see my whole life with that injury.
Wow.
And we thought that was hilarious. We would give me shrapnel in my brain so that I had some kind of brain damage, and we'd fall down laughing. We thought it was very funny. It's a very, very different perspective, because from that perspective, it's known that this lifetime is not very long, and it's not that serious. You know, we put everything in the context of one lifetime: birth, growth, maturity, aging, death, and everything has to make sense within that time frame. And so everything looks big because the time frame is relatively short. But if you imagine multiple lifetimes, or if you imagine infinity, and putting this lifetime into that context, it's only 40 years. It's only 60 years. It's only 80 years. It's not very long. So that's the perspective that we were working from. And I think it's important to explain that, because I know what it's like to live with chronic pain, and even a day can feel interminable. It can feel just like hell. And I don't want to make it sound like that's not real, because we're in the experience. It is real, but there are other perspectives. And from the perspective that we were working from, we weren't in pain. You know, we weren't in the pain. So it was easier to laugh about it. It was easier to see it from a different perspective.
Definitely. And even you saying that, it makes me think of, like, see, video games. You could play video games and you do dumb things and you laugh at, the character getting hit by a car or doing weird stuff. And you're like, look it. And so it's funny. It's almost like, did we as humans create that to make sense subconsciously? Like, whoever creates these things, maybe we're trying to just understand. I mean, that's me overthinking things, but is it like maybe subconsciously? Even movies, right? Movies, like, it's funny in acting, right? You're not supposed to break, I believe it's the fourth wall, and that's when you look at the camera, because then it's like, hey, they could see me or something, so everything's more
It's very
shot.
much like those things, I
Yeah.
think.
So it's shot more through the perspective of like, we're just observing, but then once they look back at you, it freaks you out, like, oh,
Yeah.
man. So now, with your understanding of that, so did you see a lot of these different injuries, or just like a few that you remember, like the arm, without an
The ones
arm?
I remember are like a hole in my head,
Wow.
severing my arm, a big hole in my side. Those are the ones that I remember. And then, when we were done laughing, I'm like, okay, we gotta come on, choose what you want, do it.
And so the ones you decided on, what were the main injuries, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I had a broken heel from shrapnel.
Oh, wow.
Both these bones in my arm were shattered, and some of the wrist bones were broken. All the bones on the right side of my face were broken.
Oh, wow.
and my skull was fractured, and I had some holes in my skull right here.
Mm.
And I had shrapnel. I think I had shrapnel in both eyes, but definitely in the right eye. And that retina eventually came detached. So, and because of the holes here, the muscles in this eye also don't really line up. So the eyes don't see together, and this eye has almost no vision. A
Oh,
little
wow.
bit. They reattached the retina, but there's no lens in that eye, and there was some damage to the optic nerve too. So
Wow.
those are the main things. Lots of shrapnel also.
And so, to your understanding, you agreed to this then?
Yeah, I agree to it. Now you
That's-
go. Now I think, yeah, well, I could have just broken an arm or something, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that, yeah, yeah. So, because see, I understand that now because of an experience I had, but like, so did you ever have moments when you were like, why would I even choose to do this? Like, this is crazy.
I had a couple moments like that when I was in the hospital.
Mm.
I was like, God, I really want to be able to see out of both eyes. I'm an artist. I don't, I need both my eyes. And I was getting kind of upset. And all of a sudden, I just had this really clear thought that said, oh, don't worry about it. It's only 40 more years. And I felt that. I felt
Oh,
like,
wow.
big deal. It's only 40 years. So even though at that time I didn't remember the NDE, I had moments like that over and over that I think were clearly the result of having that NDE.
Mm.
Because that's not the way I would normally have thought.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have gone, oh, it's only 40 more years. I would have gone, no, poor me.
yeah, yeah. So
So
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but let's say now with that understanding, since we're on the subject, how do you feel about like the whole human experience? Are we here to learn and that's it? It's just like a school, or are we meant to? Because see, let's say for example, in the past it would have been books, right? There was no internet. We couldn't all get the information at the snap of a finger. So now everyone's able to share these stories and make more people aware of, hey, we're only here for a limited time. Anyone that, so if this video were to go around the world, and I've seen some of your other interviews, how many people have seen them? So people would get that understanding. Well, okay, this is some kind of so how would you think? It's more of a school? It's really not real, any of it? It's all just a simulation? Or are we really gonna turn into that? Like whoever is you were on the other side, that's what we eventually become. And this is like, there's so many variables. So
mm,
what did you get from, what's your input?
well, I think the way that I'm sort of shown the world itself is that if you imagine that everything that we think, everything that we imagine, becomes real in some way,
Mm,
it forms, but it doesn't mean that holds its form. So, say somebody imagined a world and imagined it in detail. And so it kind of became something that anybody could perceive. But then I turned my attention away from it and I ignored it. And there's
mm,
no attention on it. There's nothing to hold it together. So it
mm,
begins to fall apart. But what if I created that and then got a bunch of friends together and said, look at this? And more people were attracted to it and went, oh, look at that. And pretty soon people said, hey, wait a minute, we could go into that and
mm,
have an experience through that.
mm,
Then what would that be like? And so this thing that we have created becomes more and more, quote unquote, solid.
mm,
It becomes more and more stable. And so people can beings can come into form and experience through it. That's kind of how I'm shown this reality. Is it a simulation? Well, in a way, but I mean, we're here, we're in it, it's real. You know, it doesn't, in some ways, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not real. If our experience within it is real, then it's real in that way. It has effect.
Life may move fast, or it may move slow. I met a silly man who said he make it slow. We look up out towards space, or even at the sky. One that pass away, but never look inside. Breathe in, breathe out. Life is amazing, but we'll figure this out. I mean, human beings, I ain't got no doubt. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever, ever.